You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
100.9 app. Click on the 30K payday button and enter the code for a chance to win $30,000. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Thursday, October 10, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. Chase Goodbread from the Tuscaloosa News is not here. Chase Brumfeld from Tide 100.9 FM that's the first time that's ever happened. But of course, Chase, good friend of mine, Chase Goodbread, and does Crimson Cover on WVUA 23. And Chase Brumfeld and Chase Goodbread. If you think about it, it's not that much of a difference. Brumfeld, Goodbread. So, but I've never done that before. But Chase Brumfeld alongside. We might have Chase Goodbread alongside sometime too. You never know. But Chase is manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline at 205-342-9904, and pretty much doing all the heavy lifting. Good morning, as I said, and welcome into a beautiful day here. We are having some incredible weather, and it's supposed to get only better as we go into next week. The forecast right now is for some highs in like the low 70s, upper 60s, and lows in the 40s. Fall weather for sure. Obviously, that's not the case along the Gulf Coast of Florida with the hurricane situation. Certainly, our thoughts and prayers are with people there that are dealing with, really, really terrible situation. Hopefully, this will be, Hurricane Milton will be the last hurricane of the season. Most of them usually happen in September and into early October. It's October 10th. So hopefully there will not be any more of them after this one. But this one has reached landfall on the west coast of Florida. It is a Category 3 storm. It hit near Siesta Key on Florida's central west coast. And Siesta Key is a beautiful, beautiful area. It's a barrier island located just south of Sarasota. I have some friends that live there. And it's going to be a lot of damage, a lot of flooding, a lot of, you got 120 mile per hour winds. So it's, once they get through it, then the cleanup begins. And, as I said, Siesta Key is a gorgeous, gorgeous area. That whole area is, you're talking about Tampa, Sarasota, St. Petersburg, it's beautiful there. Treasure Island, Clearwater. I mean, it's gorgeous. So anyway, we are really thinking of those people today as they're dealing with a major hurricane there along the Gulf Coast side of Florida. All right, our show today, we are loaded. First, though, I need to tell you that this hour is being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Alabama Credit Union, member-owned and not-for-profit. It's just a better way of banking. We invite you to discover the heart and soul of our member-owned credit union, empowering our members, enriching our community. That is our goal. Find out more at alabamacu.com. That's alabamacu.com. Alabama Credit Union. Loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money and put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, our lineup today, our Thursday lineup is always loaded with a lot of football discussion. 9:30, the coach, Ellis Johnson. Looking forward to picking Ellis Johnson's brain about what went wrong with Alabama defensively against Vanderbilt. As we've discussed before, he ran the 4-2-5 about his last 6 or 7 years of his coordinating career. So he knows all about it. We'll talk about what went wrong against Vanderbilt and look ahead to South Carolina, another program that he knows very, very well. He lives in South Carolina. He coached there for Steve Spurrier and has been close to that program. So the coach, Ellis Johnson, at 9:30. At 10 o'clock, the Orlando Ledbetter with the Falcons report. No look now, but the Falcons are 3-2 and leading the NFC South and have found a way to win the close games. So give them a lot of credit. We'll also get Orlando's take on Robert Saleh being fired and Aaron Rodgers' denial that he had anything to do with it. And then at 10:30, my pal Jeff Spiegel, sports anchor and host of The Zone, ABC 3340, talking Bama football, UAB football, Jacksonville State football. Boy, they had another big win last night as they blew out New Mexico State, playing one of those Wednesday night games over there in Jacksonville. So plenty of football discussion this morning. As I said, your phone calls are welcome. 205-342-9904 is the number. 205-342-9904 on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline. Major League Baseball, as we get ready for the league championship series, we've got the New York Mets going to the NLCS. Took care of the Phillies 4-1 last night. What a story the Mets are, you know, with about the 100-game mark of the season, they were nowhere to be found. But over that last, period of the season, those last 62 games or so, they stormed back. Of course, on the final day of the regular season, they split a doubleheader with the Braves to make it to the playoffs and took care of business against the Brewers in the wild card round and now beat the Phillies 3-1 in the divisional series round. And they're moving on to play the Dodgers-Padres winner. The Dodgers forcing a Game 5 back in Los Angeles. They win in San Diego last night, 8-0. In the American League, every one of the Yankees-Royals games have gone right down to the final at bat. Last night, Giancarlo Stanton with a home run in the top of the 8th. The Yankees only had 4 hits, but it was enough. They beat the Royals 3-2, and now they are 1 win away from the ALCS, as is Detroit. The Tigers, another one of these teams, much like the Mets, kind of came from nowhere. And they lead the Guardians now 2-1. They shut out Cleveland for the second straight game yesterday, 3-0. And so it's going to show you again that the regular season is a barometer for who is the best team over 160 or the best teams over 162 games. But when you get in these short playoff series, it's a brand new season, and oftentimes you're talking about a situation where, a team that's hot, and playing the extra games, maybe playing the wild card round, maybe helps these teams. The teams there with the divisional, that won their divisions are just sitting there waiting, idle for several days. Who knows? Maybe it's an advantage for the wild card teams. But that's a check on Major League Baseball. As we said last night, Jacksonville State football, and I'll ask Jeff about this, but JSU now has won 3 in a row under Rich Rodriguez. They're getting hot in Conference USA. New Mexico State won 10 games last year. This is an example of the portal going wrong. I guess Vanderbilt's the portal going right. They brought in 53 players, including New Mexico State's quarterback, Diego Pavia, their head coach, Jerry Kill, their offensive coordinator, Tim Beck. Well, New Mexico State's the flip side of that. They've lost their head coach. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their quarterback. They lost a lot of other players. And the Aggies last year had a very good football team. This year, they're 1-5. And they got blown out last night by the Gamecocks. 54-13 was the final score. So that's the portal can benefit you. But if you're one of these smaller schools that have success, like New Mexico State did last year, then a lot of your guys are going to look to leave and go to bigger schools. And their coach also left. Their offensive coordinator also left. And the heart and soul of their team, their quarterback, also left. So, for bigger and better things. So now New Mexico State goes from having a fantastic year. And if they had, Jerry Kill come back, their head coach, and Tim Beck, their offensive coordinator, and Diego Pavia, their quarterback, and a lot of other players that left, had they all come back, they would have been a really good team this year. But instead, they lose a lot of players, including Pavia. They promoted the wide receivers coach to be the head coach, but it's gone horribly south for them. But Jacksonville State is on a good run now, having won 3 games in a row there in Conference USA. All right, it's 9:11. We're off and running. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld. Love to get those phone lines heated up. They have been hot this week with all the discussion about Alabama football. And I did something on my Gary Harris WVUA Facebook page last night because of all the interest that it is garnered. I put out a picture of Coach DeBoer in his hoodie at a home game and then his T-shirt. And I said from his hoodies at home to his T-shirt at Vanderbilt, Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer's wardrobe has been a topic of a lot of discussion. Personally, I have no issue with what he has worn, but many others do. What are your thoughts on Coach DeBoer's sideline fashion choices? And I've had 264 comments. Also, Mark Ingram yesterday, we're going to pull that clip for you from his podcast that he posted on Twitter. Very, very critical. The former Alabama Heisman Trophy winner and NFL 12-year running back of Alabama in the Vanderbilt game. He says that the Bama defense is in crisis mode. We're going to play his comments for you so you can hear them for yourself. But right now, Alabama football is in a situation where they don't live very often, and that is coming off a loss. In this case, coming off a loss to a team that they were a 21-point favorite over. Alabama was number one. Vanderbilt was unranked. You've got a first-year coaching staff. So there's a lot of angst, a lot of anxiety right now surrounding the program. Now, the only way you can silence that is to go out Saturday and be impressive against South Carolina. But this week has been different. Coach DeBoer had his radio call-in show last night, and I watched some of it, and he did seem a little bit uptight. You know, he's usually very relaxed. So I think he understands what's going on around him. Not that that's going to impact how they prepare, but it's been a crazy week. But anyway, if you want to chime in on that, 205-342-9904, 205-342-9904. We'll be back with more of the Gary Harris Show. We got the Coach Ellis Johnson coming up at 9:30. And you're listening to Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Thursday morning, two 16-year-old girls from Fayette have been reported missing. Deandra Heck and Felina Ortiz were last reportedly seen Sunday night in the area of Temple Avenue North in Fayette. The Alabama Law Enforcement Agency has not said if the pair were together. Call Fayette Police or Aaliyah if you have information. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. It is absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special.
With new Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing, which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages,
North and Northport, just before Carroll's Creek Baptist Church. Sponsored by Black Warrior Marine, Castaway Fish Co., Riverside Feed and Sea, and Adams Heating and Cooling.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 63 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show.
Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama.
On your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:17. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show here on Tide 100.9 FM, 1230 AM WTBC. Phone line's wide open. We haven't experienced that much this week, but they're wide open right now at 205-342-9904. Again, the number on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline, 205-342-9904. All right, right now we are going to get to Mark Ingram, former Alabama Heisman Trophy winning running back, first Heisman Trophy winner ever at the University of Alabama back in 2009. Went on to a 12-year career as a running back in the National Football League, very productive career. And he has a podcast, and he put out some comments yesterday about Alabama football coming out of the Vanderbilt game, very critical. And he is also an analyst now for Fox Sports. So that's, even more attention that he gets. And as an analyst, you usually, kind of watch your words when you're breaking down these teams. But this is his school. He won a Heisman here. He won a national championship here. And he felt like he needed to make some comments. We've got those for you now. Here's Mark Ingram yesterday talking about Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt.
It's actually quite comical. Like, you just go and just get smacked by Vandy? Like, is this even real life? Like, what's happening? We go on the road, we just can't do anything. Like, no matter how you slice this cake, it's atrocious. No matter how you slice the cake, it's atrocious. We don't lose to Vandy. You said 40 years? The last loss was 1984. The last loss before that was 69. The loss is just atrocious. Like, it's just unacceptable. Everyone knows that. You have a huge win versus Georgia, then you go on the road to Vandy off a huge momentum and just take an L and fall straight on your face like that. The defense is just completely just unprepared for this. Run it down your throat and make you like it. Come on now. They had 9 possessions. They only punted the ball twice. Bama's defense is in crisis mode right now. They're in crisis mode. The last six quarters, 67 points, 784 yards. Opponents are converting third downs at a 54% rate. They've allowed 10, 20-yard plays. Like, you thought that the second half of the Georgia thing might have just been Georgia, but no, that's like truly who the defense is right now. You don't lose to Vanderbilt. That's not what happens when you go to Bama. Like, when you wear that script A, like, you do not lose to Vanderbilt. There's a lot of other things that might happen, but you don't lose to Vanderbilt.
All right, there you have it. That's Mark Ingram. And saying that you don't lose to Vanderbilt. Well, Alabama did. And again, Vanderbilt played a good game. So you got to give them credit. But still, it is a shocking loss. And it's been, a tough week for Alabama football. Right now, let's jump out on the Pinnacle Park and North River hotline. And that's where we find Jim. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, I don't really keep up with Major League Baseball anymore, except just to, occasionally look at the standings and all. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'll, read a little bit and I hear stuff on the radio. But is there a reason why, like Dodgers, you have Ohtani leading off when he's got 50-something home runs, which means every game he's at least going to be coming up with nobody on base, and the rest of the game, the 8-9 hitters in front of him. So is there a reason they're doing that? I mean, apparently he's doing good.
Obviously, Dave Roberts has his reasons. I think that, some of it has to do with getting him an extra at-bat, many at-bats as he can. He also, steals bases at a high clip. He gets on base at a high clip. Obviously, with, designated hitter, it's a different situation with, how they stack these lineups. And that's just something that Roberts now believes that they need to do. So, and to be honest with you, as good a hitter as he is, the more times you can get him up, and the way the lineup circles through now, sometimes batting in that one hole, you got as many opportunities to drive in runs as you do later in the lineup. So it's just something that they've looked at, I'm sure, all the analytics and what makes their team the best, and something that they've decided to do. I agree. It wasn't, years ago you would not have seen a hitter with his power leading off, but we see that more and more now in Major League Baseball. Jim, you say you don't follow it as closely as you used to, but you'll see around the league, you'll see a lot more. Acuna was leading off for a while with the Braves. You'll see a lot more guys that hit home runs at the top of the lineup, than you used to.
Yeah, now I know that from over the last few years hearing about it, read a little, but it's like that Dodgers game last night that's changed too. They didn't have a pitcher that pitched more than 1 and 2/3.
Yeah, I think they used 8 pitchers.
Yeah. It used to be, you're somebody would pitch the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
So it's, I guess it's really changed,
all the sports have, I guess it's just the natural evolution of things. But, you look at baseball, you look at football, you look at basketball, they're all a lot different than they were, even 30 years ago. All these sports are different. Look at basketball, how basketball is played now with the positionless basketball and spreading the court. And, used to, when I was coming up, I say this all the time, you had 5 basketball players. You had a center, a power forward, a small forward, a shooting guard, and a point guard. And that's just the way it was. That's the way it was. And people usually would play a post player or 2 post players, a wing or 2 wings, and a point guard. And now, they're just spread all over the floor, and everybody handles the ball, and everybody shoots the 3. And same thing in football with the spread offenses, and in baseball too with the analytics, and everything's the approach has changed for all sports. So I don't know. Like I keep saying in football, we saw it a little bit with Vanderbilt. You're going to see some of these teams are going to start going back to more of a power game, with bigger offensive linemen and tight ends, and it's going to be hard for some of these lighter defenses that are built to run and play sideline to sideline. So you might see a switch back to another style of football because of the way the game keeps going back and forth. So who knows?
Yeah, and the thing about it is both high schools do that spread, so they don't learn anything in high school, as far as defending it.
Yeah.
Hey, one more thing. I heard that thing on Bruce Pearl. It was on another show this morning. I guess he was kind of like advertising for the NIL, to help get the good players or whatever.
I didn't hear it. But you tell me what he said.
So if a school's got an NIL fund, can it be set up for Pacific Sports, or does it got to be like handed out to everybody?
Well, I think that, again, I'm not an NIL expert by any means, Jim, but I think that you can designate when you give. I think you have the opportunity to designate where you want that money to go. I mean, it's your money. So I don't know if you go to the NIL sites and if they list all the sports, but it's your money. And I don't know if they ask you that, to give toward a specific sport, but let's just say you're a fan of somebody's softball program and you want to give $100,000. I think you can designate, hey, now listen, I want to give $100,000 to the NIL collective, but I want to earmark for softball. So I definitely think you have the right to do that. Now, how they will, if you just donate without designating it, how they break it up or where they put it, I have no idea how that works. But I know you can tell them where you want your money to go. Yeah,
I know that the promo thing he was doing was asking, like, if every Auburn, fan gave $17 a month, they'd move to the top of the SEC. In the middle of the pack. Yeah,
it's probably right. I'm sure they've done this stuff. Of course, every school probably could say that, but.
Yeah.
But I don't, again, there's a lot of different ways. Like that sounds like they're saying everybody get involved, just $17 a month. You can put us at the top. I know some other schools have, targeted high dollar donors for most of their NIL contributions. I know Alabama has, tried several different ways and with the Yay Alabama Collective, I think that there is that monthly option like you're talking about with Auburn where you sign up and you give a certain amount a month and they give you, I guess, quote unquote, exclusive information and things like that. But I don't, being a broadcaster, I follow it and I cover it, but I'm not giving to anybody's NIL. So, I've never been, and I'm not knocking anybody that does it. But I've never been a member of any of the booster clubs or, I know media members who are also, in the Red Elephant Club or whatever booster club may be, and they'll cover an event, and then they'll be sitting in the event as a member of that club, listening to the coach give out information that is not supposed to be for the media. I've always just kind of found that to be strange, but to each their own. People can do whatever they want to do.
Okay, well, y'all have a nice day, man.
All right, thank you, Jim. Appreciate you. All right, it's 9:27 here on the Gary Harris Show. Timing it out well because we're due to hit the break. And when we come back, Coach Ellis Johnson, who has been a defensive coordinator at Alabama, at Auburn, at Mississippi State, at South Carolina, has coached at numerous other schools, has been a head coach at the FBS level, and joins us every Thursday to break down SEC football with an emphasis on Alabama. And we'll ask him what went wrong defensively with the 4-2-5 against Vanderbilt. We'll do that next right here on the Gary Harris Show.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time.
To me, but I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Try Game Planes with OxyBoost and Febreze.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy
vinaigrette dressing and spicy Cajun sauce. And check out our breakfast catering menu. Blues Q and Brew is open 7 days a week. We're located at 1825 McFarland Boulevard North in the Northridge Center.
Roll Tide, the best sports talk, period. Your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
9:31. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. It's time for the coach, Ellis Johnson, for his weekly breakdown of SEC football, one of our most popular segments, and we got a lot to cover today. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning, Gary.
All right, you coached at Alabama twice. You know how big football is here, and you know how much it's talked about when the Tide is winning. But for all of the positive talk when it's winning, boy, when they lose one around here, it goes south in a hurry, and all the things that fans have been kind of complaining about, kind of under their breath, they let it all come out. And it's been a rough week around here with Vanderbilt knocking off Alabama 40-35. In fairness to the fan base, you got the number one team in the country going to a team where they've beaten them 23 straight times over 40 years. Been longer than that since they lost in Nashville, and Vanderbilt won it 40-35. I talked with you briefly yesterday about Alabama's defense and the issues that they had against Vanderbilt. In addition to giving up the points, couldn't get off the field on third down. It was just a very poor performance. Let's focus on the defense right now and what went wrong. You ran the 4-2-5 the latter half of your career. You're very familiar with the scheme. What was Vanderbilt able to do to exploit Alabama's defense on Saturday?
Well, the biggest thing I was able to get from it, and Gary, I was trying to watch my son's team at the same time, so back and forth, and so I guess it's not a great analysis of the film and everything. But what Vandy's doing right now is giving people so much trouble, especially Alabama in this game. They're using personnel in various ways. And what I mean by that, they're not having to substitute people in and out to get in some very unusual formations and sets. So it reminds me a little bit of what Coach Malzahn used to do when I was working with him at Auburn when I coached against him. But they're using commonly now 11 personnel, a tight end, a running back, and other three wideouts. And you can create some good stuff in that if you've got versatile players. So they all of a sudden they're lined up and they're four wide with trips to one side. Next time they come back, and they're the same people on the field, and they've got three guys in the backfield with the quarterback. So it's almost a four-back wishbone type of attack with so many options off of that. And you can't know who's coming in the game, so you still got that fifth DB out there. And you can play it with five DBs. We did. But our fifth DB, those guys were NFL players later on. So if you've got a physical enough guy, you just got to add him to the box and load up numbers in there and pick them up. But that's all I could tell. We used to have an expression, it's not only where they are, it's who they are.
Right.
And it's not only who they are, it's where they are. So if you can't substitute based on personnel, you've got to have your packages adjusted. And it just looked like to me when they got in those unorthodox option fullback sets, they were outnumbered. And then when they spread it out, they tried to play man on those guys and got picked on sometimes.
All right, short version. And as you said, you didn't have a chance to study every play, but if I understand what you just said correctly, Alabama in the game more times than not just did not have enough people in the box to defend it correctly. My next question obviously would be, why didn't Kane Womack and that defensive staff adjust to that during the game? Because you've got opportunities once you see what they're doing and how they're trying to attack you, I would think, to adjust to that. And it appears from my vantage point, and I don't know, that's why I'm asking you, that Alabama didn't do a very good job of that.
Well, to answer quite simply, I can't break it down and say why not, because I wasn't involved in the planning and I wasn't involved in the corrections. But they either felt like the scheme was sound or they were unable to get adjusted. The players weren't doing it the way they told them to do it. There's no way of knowing that. But if obviously they were having a problem with it. I mean, this is, I didn't realize how lopsided it was. I mean, they were always ahead.
Yeah.
And I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked anybody in the SEC could get upset by the worst team in the SEC. You can't sleep in the SEC, but you'd have thought it would have been some kind of crazy fluke play that was giving them a chance. They never trailed. They had 24 minutes of possession time advantage. Alabama ran 45 plays. That's got to be some kind of record in their record book. 45 plays. And then 0 turnovers go down the bill. I mean, the way it was just masterful. Now, I will say this. You say, well, why isn't everybody running that? You got to have a guy like Pavia who fits the system, and you got to have the personnel to kind of do it. And, just like Auburn was a hell of an offense with Cam Newton, but then when they had a guy that couldn't run very well, it was just another offense. So we could find a lot of fault, I'm sure, with the performance. There's no question. There's tons of things out there that must have gone wrong, but there's no way for me to analyze it from a technical aspect, not knowing what they were trying to do.
Vanderbilt is an interesting case study in the portal era because when Clark Lee got there, he had talked about, and that's what he was trying to do. He wanted to be a developmental program. He wanted to bring guys in, keep them in the program, teach them the system, get them bigger, stronger, faster, and try to win that way. It wasn't working. This offseason, he embraces the portal. They go and get 53 players out of the portal. They get Pavia. They get the tight end Stowers. They get the head coach, Jerry Kill. They get the offense coordinator, Tim Beck. And it's just totally, transformed their program. The flip side of that I saw also last night was New Mexico State, where a lot of those guys were at, and they won 10 games last year. They lost a bunch of players to the portal, and now they're 1-5, and they got blown out 54-13 last night by Jacksonville State. So I guess this is a good case example of Vanderbilt on one end benefiting, and New Mexico State absolutely getting just gutted by the portal. And it's kind of where we're at, right, Coach?
Yeah, it really is. And I don't want to get off too far into that because I'm negative on it. I think it's going to damage college football in the long run. Going to damage a lot of players in the long run too. They're going to end up 10 years. They're going to be spending money from the little NIL package. They're not going to be in pro football, and they're going to have a degree that nobody wants to hire you for. So it's not a good thing all the way around. But I don't want to detour off that too deeply. I look on the other side of it, Gary. Clemson is a build it from the inside up, and Florida State's let's buy them in the portal. And it's gone south for Florida State, and Clemson's now, over the hump, and they're on cruise control if they can keep going. There are examples that prove both of them are the best way to go. But I'm going to say this. If you don't recruit well and have a good core of players in your program that are staying for 2 or 3 years, you're going to have problems. And if you refuse to use the portal and bring in some key players that can be a critical addition for your team, then I think you're going to have a problem, too, as far as winning any kind of championships. So I think there's a happy medium in there. And I didn't realize Vanderbilt brought that many players. But the other thing you got to do when you get them out of the portal, you better research their character.
Let's take a look at going forward because that's all you can do with Alabama. And they'll be at home on Saturday morning against another one of your teams where you coached, obviously, at South Carolina. And both these teams are coming off losses. South Carolina coming off a disappointing home loss to Ole Miss where they never got anything going offensively. I know there's no doubt they're going to look at the film. They've got 2 dual-threat quarterbacks. They've got a great running back in Rocket Sanders. They're probably going to cherry-pick some stuff they saw Vanderbilt do. And for Alabama, it's just a chance to kind of get back out there and get that bitter taste out of your mouth. How do you see this matchup Saturday morning between Alabama and South Carolina?
Well, South Carolina is kind of they're a dangerous team, Gary. I mean, they dismantled Kentucky, and then they come back and they had a close loss to LSU, who I think will end up being right in the thick of it. But they're having a problem with the young quarterback. He's not playing consistently. He is a dangerous kid. And I actually said to some people on a little Columbia show not too long ago, the kid reminds me of Jalen Milroe. He's got those kind of physical talents. He just hadn't had any experience. and he's making some mistakes with the football, and then he's running style and so forth. He's had 2 minor injuries. But they're a very dangerous team. The defense is playing very well in spots. If Alabama doesn't clean up some of the issues they've got going, and I will go back and say this didn't start in Nashville. It started in the Georgia game. This is not a focused group that is on top of things. They don't look like a very mature football team. And what I mean by mature is doing things the right way every play. Doesn't matter if you're 40 ahead or 40 behind. Doing things the right way every play. They don't seem to be focused. Penalties. I mean, they had too many penalties last game too. But I think that Carolina would have a chance of upsetting if they're not playing well. But I don't think they can go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama right now.
Let me ask you this on the Vanderbilt game, because I have, obviously texted with some former players. I've texted with some, some parents of current players and trying to figure out what happened with the defense. And I have been told that some of this had to do with simply, the defensive staff believing that personnel-wise, they were just better than Vanderbilt and didn't have to do too much in terms of schematics and could just, just be effective because they've got better players. That make any sense to you? Would you ever approach a game where saying, hey, we don't really have to change up much of what we do defensively or adjust because our personnel is better than their personnel and we can get through the game just doing what we do? Is that something that is plausible at all?
It could be an approach they took, because I know when I first was coaching at Citadel in the early 2000s, it was a conference. It was about half triple option wishbone style and about half pro style. And so the amount of adjustments we had to do during the course of the year, getting into a wishbone system that you could have a chance to stop it, and then going back to something that could play against these next guys. And so in that little conference, we were very varied in offenses, but we also were very flexible with our defenses. When you get out of that, and I went back into the SEC at Mississippi State, when we would run into one of these triple option type teams, I mean, we played West Virginia 2 years in a row. We weren't a real good football team then, personnel wise, and that was when Rich Rod was there. They were really cooking. They were one of the best offensive teams in the country. We couldn't get the system polished up enough with a 3-day preparation to play effectively against them. And what it does to you is the next week you go back to your regular defensive system, and the kids take them 3 days to clean that up and get back into the system. So it could be that they said, hey, we can't just change everything we're doing to stop this fullback option. We got to just try to play basic defense, be sound, everybody play your assignments. We'll make enough plays to get off the field. I've seen people approach wishbone teams like that before, and it doesn't work unless your offense scores 30 points in the first quarter and you get them out of their offense.
Mm-hmm. How big was that? It's like we already talked about. Vanderbilt never played from behind. It made a big difference in the game, didn't it? Because like you said, if they get behind, it's a whole different approach for them.
Yeah, but I don't want to minimize what Vandy's defense did. I mean, they did take away some of the explosive plays and kept Alabama from jumping out and getting that lead. But when your offense comes out and gets that first touchdown and then gets that next scoring drive, et cetera, now it's into Vanderbilt's ball game. And you've got to find a way offensively to come back and put points on them to try to get them into a little more throwing system where you can play your base defense. So everything went right for Vanderbilt, but they made it that way themselves. And Alabama let them make it that way.
All right, final thought on Alabama, and we'll get back to Alabama, South Carolina, and then we'll look at some other games, some other teams. For Alabama, coming home, been a rough week. You know, fans are upset about what Coach DeBoer wears on the sidelines, about, you know, how the team talks to other teams. It's just a lot of stuff they're dealing with on the peripheral, but you got to focus on the game. For Alabama, this is a different team, but again, they've got the ability to run the ball on you. Do you change some things that you're doing if you're Alabama, both, you know, offensively and defensively? Do you see any philosophy changes when you come off a loss as opposed to if they'd have won the football game?
Well, just overall watching their offensive system, their scheme and everything, I don't see any issues with that. It looks very similar. Right. I don't see a whole lot of changes, and I think it complements the quarterback very well. Defensively, I don't know because, again, I don't know everything they're doing. I think people are making too much out of this 5 DB system. If you go back and look at the films when Coach Saban was there, after his first half of his tenure there, 90% of the snaps on defense, you'd find a 5th DB out there. It's just a different way of getting to it. You can't play 3 and 4 wide out offenses without a 5th DB out there unless you're going to blitz every play. So I don't see any major changes. What I do think is that they're going to have this tremendous variation from a team like a Vanderbilt. They better have some answers for it. And that means getting into some different schemes and so forth, especially if they're not subbing personnel to get into these offensive sets that they're doing. So, maybe they play a little bit more zone. I didn't see them just get, beaten man-to-man too often. I just saw things where they didn't have enough people up there to account for all the elements of the option and the different plays they were seeing.
All right, Tennessee and Missouri are probably the biggest benefactors of Alabama losing because Tennessee got beat at Arkansas and Missouri got undressed at A&M. Those were 2 undefeated top 10 teams as well. First of all, Tennessee and Arkansas. That Tennessee, all we had heard and seen was that Tennessee's offense was almost unstoppable. Well, Arkansas stopped them. What happened in that game, Coach?
Well, I think they did a great job, especially early in the game, but just not giving them the easy throw, the explosive plays downfield, and they did a super job of tackling when they dropped them off underneath. This is 2 times that Tennessee's offense this year has been slowed, and so there may be a little something there where they're not quite as talented as people thought they were, but they're not hitting all the explosive passes like they were in some previous years and even 1 or 2 games this year. The other thing I was impressed, and it took them a while, but Tennessee's defense has been outstanding, and Petrino was able to kind of get them going toward the last part of the game, put up over 400 yards, and started, converting some third downs, staying on the field, and they came from behind to win this ball game. The other thing, Tennessee had 10 penalties, 60 yards, and that crushed a couple of their drives too. Amazing there was no turnovers in the game, but this is not the first game Tennessee's had a little slowdown on offense, so maybe it's something to look for there. They're really legit on defense this year, but they may not be as good as they thought they were going to be on offense.
And boy, Mike Elko's getting it done at A&M. I mean, they're unbeaten in the conference, and they just absolutely annihilated Missouri.
Absolutely. I was talking to my other day. I said, they are quietly sneaking in the back door. And if you look at the schedule, Gary, they got all the big boys coming into College Station the rest of the way. So everybody better take a pointer from this Alabama game and don't try to sleep on any opponent. Texas A&M's got the best schedule running out the tail end of this season, and hopefully they've got that quarterback situation. They've got Wegman back. They got some balance in their offense, and it didn't look like Missouri's defense, which has been pretty good this year. They weren't ready for the different passing other combinations where the balance came into the offense. So this is 2 games in a row also that Brady Cook has not played well, and I don't know what that would be, but Vandy and Texas A&M, their quarterbacks have outplayed him, and he's been very average.
Quick thought on Billy Napier getting a huge win. Obviously the SEC schedule will tell the tale, but he'd already lost one to Miami. He didn't want to drop that game at home against Central Florida, and Florida got a win that, at least for the moment, was, they needed some good medicine, and they got a little bit.
Yeah, especially at home. I mean, I think they were 2-point dog at home to a school in the state that, they don't ever want to lose to. And so that's a good, solid win for them. But it was an average performance, but at least they took care of the football, didn't have a turnover, about 350 yards of offense, ran it pretty well. It was nothing flashy, but it was a desperation win for him, and I hope they can keep it up. I don't want to see him end up on the chopping block, but they got a tough road game going up to Tennessee.
And Georgia bounced back, beating Auburn 31-13. Auburn goes into the bye 2-4 and 0-3 in the SEC, and staring down the barrel of a fourth straight losing season, which I don't know how many people realize that Auburn's on their way if they can't turn this thing around to a fourth straight losing season. They get to the bye. What does Auburn look to do to try to kind of, it's not like they're a terrible football team, but they're losing.
And you're exactly right. I mean, they played almost a pretty even game with the teams, one of the best 5 teams in the country, but they cannot sustain drives. And it looks like it goes back mostly to third downs. They're terrible on third down. And they'll sometimes, not this game, but some other games, they've missed a field goal on the end of a drive, or they turn a ball over at a critical time. But that was the biggest difference. Georgia stayed on the field on third downs, and they were two on fourth. So they were like 60% hanging on to the ball and sustaining a drive. And Auburn was about 30%. And that was really the difference in the game. There were no turnovers. And they, like I said, they played a good game. They just cannot make those critical plays when they really need them to finish out series, finish out a quarter, finish out a half, finish out a game.
All right, let's look ahead to the weekend. The big game, there's a couple, but let's start with Texas and Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry. The difference now is they're 2 members of the SEC. Texas is a 15-point favorite here, but they were a big favorite last year, and Oklahoma got them. Texas is, I think most of us would say right now the best team in the SEC, but is Oklahoma capable of pulling the upset?
Yeah, they are, but it's going to be tough. They got them. I think they got them neutral. Isn't it neutral site?
Yeah, it's in Dallas. It's Cotton Bowl.
Okay. And the difference in the game, I'm afraid, is going to be the quarterbacks. Now, unless something happens with Quinn Ewers coming back and he's rusty and he doesn't perform well and they're able to take advantage of that. But Oklahoma right now, they're playing good defense, but they're not a really good offense right now. They got a little quarterback quandary going on. Texas is good on defense as well as offense. So if they can pull this one off, I'd be amazed, but it'd be a huge upset.
And Ole Miss at LSU. Ole Miss dropped that game to Kentucky unexpectedly at home. LSU, since the season opening loss to Southern Cal, is, they're unbeaten in the league. Last year we remember that game in Oxford was unbelievable. Ole Miss, 51-49 or whatever it was. This is a huge
Yeah, it is, Gary. And the other aspect on this one, Ole Miss's offense has not been in gear here the last 2 weeks. They beat Carolina on the other side of the ball. And so I'm curious if LSU's defense has not been that great this year either. The key to this one is, can Ole Miss go down there and get points scored and on LSU and outscore them, I guess is what I'm saying. But it is going to be a really good game. And all these teams we're talking about, and they all got one loss except Texas, of course. Everybody's still in this thing. So every SEC matchup becomes real important.
And Vanderbilt tries to take this momentum. They go to Kentucky on Saturday night. I've said before, we've seen other teams knock off Alabama. And you beat Alabama, well, what do you do with it? And oftentimes I've seen teams upset Alabama, and they don't really wind up, getting a lot of bang for their buck. They lose the next week, or this is a big game for these two teams. And can Vanderbilt take this Alabama win and build on it, or do they go right back into losing mode?
I do think they're legit this year. I think they're probably a little bit more mature and tough and everything, but it'll be hard for them to get refocused. And the 3 most critical days are already over. They either came back, got to work, had good preparation, or they've been distracted. And it doesn't matter what happened Saturday. If you didn't have good preparation, it's going to be hard. The other thing I will say is Mark Stoops is not going to put a football team out there that's not adjusted right. Vanderbilt's going to have to beat them. Now, they can, but they're not going to outnumber them or out-scheme them or anything. He'll have a defensive plan where they're going to have to outplay Kentucky. And I think Kentucky will probably beat them.
Great stuff, Coach, man. We appreciate you. And
save big and discover why so many are switching to BMW. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 67 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:57. Personal training at the YMCA might be what gets you over the hump. If you've kind of hit the wall with your workouts, you're suffering from a lack of motivation. Bennett Elmore, Riley Strickland, Michael Johnson, personal trainers certified at the YMCA of Tuscaloosa, can help take you to the next level. Check out personal training. Find out more at ymcatuscaloosa.org/personal-training, or just go to the ymcatuscaloosa.org website and you'll find the personal training link there. Personal training, I believe in it. I think it's effective. I think for busy people in particular, you get there, they'll maximize your workouts. Check it out. Personal training at the YMCA, 2300 13th Street downtown. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the first hour of the program. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Hour number 2, we'll get it started with the Falcons report with D. Orlando Ledbetter. Atlanta playing well. Also, Jeff Spiegel at 10:30. More of your phone calls. The Gary Harris Show. Hour
North and Northport, just before Carroll Creek Baptist Church. Sponsored by Hicks Taxidermy, Mary's Travel Center, North River Outdoors, and Crimson Pride Hunting and Fishing.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Kevin Wyatt.
Some NFL news this morning as Jets interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich has announced today that passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach Todd Downing will be the new offensive play caller for the Jets. Ulbrich will continue to call plays for the defense. In some NBA news, Danny Green saying he is retiring after 15 NBA seasons. He announced it on his podcast Thursday morning. He's one of 4 players in NBA history to have championships with 3 different teams. And in Major League Baseball last night, it's the Mets advancing to the NLCS, beating the Phillies 4-1 to take the series 3-1. Dodgers avoid elimination with an 8-0 win against the Padres, tying that series at 2 games apiece. Yankees take a 2-1 lead in their series, beating the Royals 3-2.
It's the Tide 100.9 30K workday payday. Woo! Win cash every weekday 8 to 5. Here's this hour's cash code.
610. Again, that's 610. The code is 610.
Enter that code now on the Tide 100.9 app. Click on the 30K payday button and enter the code for a chance to win $30,000. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show, right here on Tide 100.9 FM at 12:30 a.m. WTBC. I'm Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld alongside, and we're going to kick off this second hour with my friend D. Orlando Ledbetter, longtime Falcons beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, AJC.com, and the Falcons are making a little noise in the NFC South. Good morning, Orlando. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me today.
Boy, this is setting up pretty well all of a sudden. The Falcons they won a 1-point game at Philadelphia, a 2-point game against the Saints when they didn't score an offensive touchdown, and then an overtime game where Cousins went off for over 500 yards of offense, 36-30, and their 2 losses are to AFC teams, which if you're going to lose, it's better to lose out of conference. And now they get ready to go to Carolina, which is the worst team in the National Football League. So all of a sudden, we look at the NFC South, and the Atlanta Falcons are in pretty good shape.
Yeah, no question about it, Gary. They been able to pull out some wins while still trying to pull some things together. Just a gutsy performance there against the Bucs there. They got a 4.7 win probability after that interception with 1:56 to go. Somehow the defense gets a stop, forces a punt, and they're able to force overtime, get that ball clocked, and get the field goal with 1 second left, and then get the big play in overtime. So, yeah, they're living right, is what a lot of people like to say when things are breaking like that for you.
Yeah, but they're taking advantage, and this was the breakout game for Kirk Cousins. I mean, it still had a couple mistakes, clearly, but 509 yards and made the plays in overtime. And he is, you said you liked it from the get-go. I questioned the signing, man. I did. 36-year-old guy that, limited playoff success. I thought Justin Fields might be a better option, but clearly this is becoming Kirk Cousins' football team right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Why I was so big on it because I knew he knew how to read defenses, and then from the quarterback series, I saw how tough he was,
right.
And what he goes through to get ready. I wasn't a big fan of his early in his days in Washington, taking over for RG3, and thought he was a limited quarterback. Couldn't win the big games and all that. With that primetime record. But, you drop him into this unit that was already built out, he would know what to do with the ball is what I thought. And it's taken a little time, but he certainly knew what to do with it against the Bucs.
Well, I'm starting to get a little bit enthusiastic. I mean, that opening game against the Pittsburgh Steelers was such a disappointment. You're at home, and you lose, and then in week 3, you got a chance to knock off the Chiefs. But, again, those are 2 AFC teams. We knew they had the 3 straight games against NFC South teams, 2 of them at home. You took care of business against the Saints. You took care of business against the Bucs. Now, if you get this road win at Carolina, all of a sudden you're halfway through the NFC South and you're 3-0. Again, a lot of football will be left to be played, but if they win Sunday and get to 4-2 and 3-0 in the division, at least at this point in the season, they're the team to beat in the NFC South. Would you agree?
Yeah, no question about it. They'll have this game. You can't slip up, and we've seen one of the biggest slip-ups in history in the last week or so. Alabama handling Georgia and losing to Vanderbilt.
Yep.
So, yeah, everybody's on alert now that you can't take anybody for granted. And we'll see if the Falcons can navigate that. Then they get to Seattle, and then they go to Tampa Bay. So, they got a chance to win a couple more NFC games and NFC South games to really, really stake their claim to the lead in the division.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, defensively, you give up 30 points, and it's easy to say, well, they're not playing that well, and but they have played pretty well this year, better than last year. Even in games when they've given up points, as you said, they've been able to make plays. They've been able to, they got off the field against Tampa Bay. This defense, I don't know if you'd call it opportunistic, but they have, where do you, how has the defense played in your opinion?
Yeah, opportunistic, bend but not break type of crew. You got Jesse Bates, ball hawking. Justin Simmons is figuring out his way, and he had a big pick there in the Kansas City game. But yeah, you got to get. They're getting their hands on the balls. They're knocking balls off of people. What is disturbing is the 148 yards a game rushing they're giving up. That's just too much. They can figure out how to get that down. You can stop bending so much. But, that's where they're at right now. Opportunistic, bend but not break defense, keeping the ball in front of them, trying to limit the explosive plays.
Zach Robinson, I'll get back to the offense. He seems like, to me, from the outside looking in, he's done a nice job calling plays for this Falcons offense. What's your opinion of him?
Yeah, no question about it. I think he knew what the counters were when the Bucs and the Chiefs and the Saints all took away the running game, and it wasn't ready to work against the Chiefs. Bijan only had 31 in that game, or 28 in that game, and then 31 against the Saints. But when the Bucs took it away, they knew where to go with the ball, and they just stayed with the pass, threw it 60 times. And say, well, okay, you're going to keep coming up on our run game. We're going to throw it over you. And so now that's the answer, and now it's the matter of putting it all together. Getting back to Bijan, getting back to Kyle Pitts, getting back to Drake London. Make some kind of guess on who the weapon is for the Falcons.
All right, Sunday at Carolina. It's a late kick for some reason. You would think this would be an early game, but it's a late kick. Who's your pick here?
Yeah, I think the Falcons are, Coach Moore's been around the block. He'll have them locked in and ready to go. The veterans are taking control of that. Jesse Bates and Grady Jarrett, guys I talked to yesterday, they understand what, good teams do in, this situation. And that's about them and going out there and go ahead and punch the Panthers in the mouth while they're down. But, Jesse Bates paid with Andy Dalton in Cincinnati. He knows what he can do if given time. They got a couple good insights that I think will lead them to handle their business up in Charlotte.
D. Orlando Ledbetter with us. Let's go around the league a little bit. First of all, your reaction to Robert Saleh getting the plug pulled by Woody Johnson after 5 games this season with the Jets. Arnick, the defensive coordinator, gets promoted. He's already going to Todd Dowling as the play caller. Hackett being demoted. It seems like Saleh wanted to get rid of Hackett anyway. I'll be honest with you. You're the NFL guy. I don't like this move. I like Robert Saleh. I don't think he did anything to deserve to be fired. He wanted to make some changes with the offensive structure, and they wouldn't let him do it. A lot of people feel like Aaron Rodgers had a hand in this. Of course, obviously, he's denying that. What do you make of this Jet situation?
Yeah, just a hot mess. Robert Saleh didn't deserve this. The Jets got one of the top defenses in the league. He's a defensive coach. And when he wanted to make some moves on the offensive side of the ball, he got fired. So, whether Aaron Rodgers wants to take credit for it or don't, that's what happened. We got the facts, and we'll deal with that. And Jeff Albrook was here on Dan Quinn's staff. He was co-calling the plays here at the end with Raheem Morris. He's ready for the job, and he's going to be a no-nonsense guy that, is going to try to play some high-level defense and probably try to just manage that offense and get it running. They got some good running backs. They got to commit to that and then let the old guy throw it off of that instead of the other way around.
Best teams in the league. I mean, the Ravens are 3-2, but a lot of people are saying they're the best team. We'll get to the Vikings in a moment, but the Chiefs are 5-0, and listen, they could be 3-2 or 4-1 or, worst case scenario 1-4, but I guess that's why they're the Chiefs. It just seems like, and they're coming off a more impressive win over the Saints, but they're just, they're the dragon, and they're just hard to slay. It just seems like you have opportunities to beat them, but whether it's Mahomes or the defense coming up with a play, they just always seem to make the plays to win the games. Until they don't win the Super Bowl, they're still the team to beat, right? It all starts with the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL.
Yes, no doubt. Just because they're doing it in different ways. Every week, they lose their big receiver, then they, Juju Smith-Schuster comes to the forefront when he's the guy we had thought was a possession receiver. He's, they pick up Kareem Hunt off the running back scrap heap, and he runs for 100 yards for him. So they got answers when everybody else has got questions. Great front office, great way to get people incorporated. And Coach Andy looked like he was ready to go with 3 tight ends for a while there, just to move the ball that way. So. And he's a former tight ends coach, so he certainly can do that. And the defense is playing at a high level. So, they are the team to beat. Vikings are the surprise team. I still like the Ravens. I don't know what's going on in Cincinnati. I think all the contract stuff has got the team demoralized. That's something that the Brown family has undervalued throughout the years. Mm-hmm. That when you get good players, you pay them, and that helps your locker room out. And so they're 1-4 for some reason. And the only thing I can come up with is the contracts with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So I still like that team. If they can fix their morale issues, maybe they can get moving over there in the AFC.
All right, the Vikings. Along with the Chiefs, the only unbeaten teams left. And you look at Minnesota, Sam Darnold's rebirth. Of course, he probably wouldn't even got this opportunity had J.J. McCarthy, the rookie out of Michigan, not gone down to season-ending injury. But what do you make of what the Vikings have been able to do so far?
Yeah, great job by Brian Flores on the defensive side of the ball, really just attacking people. And then that's allowed Darnold to play within himself, not try to do too much. He's got some weapons. They're using them. And, they're doing a great job of attacking people. And when they play the Lions, that's gonna be a good one for the NFC North. I want to see that one. That'll be a big test. But, yeah, the Vikings are, Brian Flores and his defense has been the story up there for them.
All right, great stuff as always, Orlando. We appreciate the update. And if people want to get more of your information and insight, how do they do it?
They can follow us on the X or Twitter at @TheOrlandoAJC, and the website, a newspaper, is AJC.com.
Talk to you next week.
Take care, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Orlando. Great segment as always from D. Orlando Ledbetter on the Falcons and the NFL. It's 10:14 here on the Gary Harris Show. Beautiful weather is here, and I've been telling you this. It's a great time to play a round of golf. Man, the best time of the year for me. I like fall golf even more than I like spring golf, although it's hard for me to get out and play. But it's an opportunity for you at a hidden gem in Tuscaloosa, Tall Pines Golf Club, over there in the Woodland Forest neighborhood. Beautiful golf course, scenic. The leaves are going to start changing. You're going to love it. And it's open for public play Tuesday through Sunday. They'll also, take memberships if you want to become a member. But give them a call to book a tee time today, 205-556-1232, 205-556-1232. I think you'll love that little getaway right here in Tuscaloosa. Scenic course, beautiful neighborhood, Tall Pines Golf Course, 205-556-1232. Book a tee time today. All right, we're wide open in the next segment for phone calls.
ABC 1230 with Wyatt Fulton and Matt Coulter, presented by BMW of Tuscaloosa, Pearl River Resort and Casino, Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and Walk-Ons.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events.
Electrical distributors in Tuscaloosa, Coleman, or Decatur, or call All Phase Electric Supply in Albertville and Huntsville for an on-site evaluation and recommendations for optimizing your lighting.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 70 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Where the season never ends. This is your home of Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:18. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. And phone lines are open on the Pinnacle Park and North River hotline, 205-342-9904. We had the coach on, Ellis Johnson, earlier, breaking down this SEC schedule. A reminder that tomorrow we got a lot going on. I'll be live at Innisfree Irish Pub from 9 to 11 as we start off Fridays at the Free, get you ready for the football weekend. I'll also have my SEC point spread predictions, and yes, I have gone south. I have gone south. But, maybe I'll bounce back, and we'll give away our Bama football trivia contest, a beautiful Trent Richardson print. I'll get a picture of it and get it out on social media tonight. That's courtesy of T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall. So big show on tap for tomorrow. All right, SEC football schedule again. I'll run it down, even though Coach Johnson talked about a lot of these games, but I'm going to give you the time, the television, and the point spread. South Carolina at Alabama, Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, 11 a.m. on ABC. On Saturday morning, Alabama is a 21-point favorite, and the under-over is 50.5. That 21-point favorite surprises me just a little bit. Of course, obviously, what do I know? But I would probably set that more at, 16 or 17, but it's 21. Missouri is at Massachusetts. UMass will host the Missouri Tigers coming off a loss. That's 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN2. And Missouri is a 27.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 54.5. Number 1, Texas, taking on number 18, Oklahoma, at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, 2:30 p.m. on ABC. Texas is a 14.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 50.5 in that one. Mississippi State travels to Georgia in a battle of the Bulldogs. Georgia, huge favorite here. That's a 3:15 Central kick on the ESPN SEC Network. SEC Network, Georgia 33.5-point favorite against Mississippi State. The over-under 53.5 in that one. Florida is at Tennessee, and this is one that I probably should have got to Coach Ellis Johnson with, but we were getting short on time. Tennessee coming off that loss to Arkansas. Florida coming off a big win over Central Florida. That's a 6 p.m. kick on ESPN on Saturday night at Neyland Stadium. Tennessee's a 16.5-point favorite over the Gators, and the over-under is 55.5. Ole Miss at LSU, also 6:30 on ABC. Ole Miss is a 3.5-point favorite in Baton Rouge at Tiger Stadium, and the over-under 61.5. And then Vanderbilt at Kentucky, the Commodores try to prove that the Alabama game wasn't a fluke as they go into Lexington to take on Kentucky, 6:45 Saturday night on the SEC Network. Kentucky is a 13.5-point favorite, and the over-under in that one is 44.5. So that's your SEC lineup for this Saturday. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to have a long day because I got to be in there early, Saturday morning. It's the 11 a.m. kick, and then I've got to do the 10 o'clock sports that night on WVUA 23. So going to be a long one for me. Of course, I'm used to it. I'm here on the radio every day at 9 a.m. and don't get off and do the 10, don't get off till 10:30 on a regular night. But hopefully Alabama's going to play well in the game. I still believe Kalen DeBoer is a quality football coach. From my experiences with him, I know he's a quality human being, and I think he'll have this team ready to go on Saturday. And I feel like we're going to see Alabama bounce back with an impressive performance. Now, will they cover that 21-point number? I picked it 38-20 on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday night, which means I've got South Carolina covering. But we'll see. I might change my mind by tomorrow. I definitely think Alabama's going to play well on Saturday. I just feel like that they'll do that. I feel like that the offense, I think, has been good all year. It's whether or not that defense can make the corrections and come up with a game plan and come up with a strategy that's going to allow them to get the offense to football. And if they can get back to, forcing some turnovers and forcing some punts, I think Alabama offensively is going to be hard to handle for anybody. I mean, I thought they were hard to handle for Vanderbilt. It just didn't get enough opportunities in the game. But if they've got the ball, look out for what they're capable of doing. I mean, I think that this is an offensive team that with Milroe and Ryan Williams and the other receivers, and hopefully they're going to get Kendrick Law back. Also, you look at the tight ends. They've been using them. And I think the running backs, that's an area where I think they can get a little more production, get those running backs going. All right, right now we're going to jump out on the Pinnacle Park and North River Hotline and welcome in RV. Hey, RV, what's going on?
Hey, Gary, good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
Hey, listen, yesterday the judge ruled to do away with the national letter of intent. And just want to talk about that a little bit, how you think that is going to impact college football, the early signing period, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not the best legal guy, and during the focus, I probably RV will defer to you, and you tell me. I probably need to read a little more up on it. What is the plan for how they're going to handle it if there is? I know it's going away, but how they're going to handle the signings and what exactly is the plan for how you get players on campus and get them as part of your program? I know it's going to be some type of financial aid agreement and the revenue sharing, but again, I see the generalities, but I'm not sure specifically how it's going to work. Is it going to be a revenue share program? Is it you tell me. You probably know more about it than I do. I'm not sure how it's going to work.
Well, I've read a little bit about it, but it's hard. It's kind of hard to understand, but. It's like, they're doing away with the binding agreement. Right.
No NIL, no national or NLI. I don't want to get it confused with NIL, but the NLI is going away.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you you sign like it used to be a signing day, and that was binding. You had to go there. I mean, instead, it's being replaced, like you mentioned, with this revenue sharing thing. But what's a little bit confusing about it is even though you're not, that binding agreement is being done away with, you're still signing a contract.
Mm-hmm.
But it's becoming more like, NFL when it comes to signing a contract with a player. That's who you're going to play with, and you've got the legalities all involved in there. And it's just become very, very confusing, as far as how that's all going to work. Like, you no longer have this thing where if I sign a football player, he's coming to my school and I know I'm going to have him for a little while. Then you put in the transfer portal, and used to be you knew you had a player for about 3 years, but now all that's gone. And now with this, you might have a player for a year, but it's affected college football in so many ways, including parity, which now it's going to be harder and harder to find an undefeated college football team. It's becoming more like the NFL. You're going to still have some really good teams, but the last time the NFL had an undefeated team, I believe, was 1972 with the Dolphins. And so, it's just it affects college football in so many ways, and I think doing away with the national letter of intent also is going to have, I feel like, a negative impact when it comes to loyalty to your school.
Well, especially when you consider, again, I'm trying to figure out exactly what the contract will be, because National Signing Day is less than 2 months away, December 4th. And if you don't have a national letter of intent to sign, as you said, you're going to have to sign some type of contract that binds you to that school. But I don't know. I probably need to study this more. But I guess at this point, first of all, it's confusing with name, image, and likeness, NIL, and then you got national letter of intent, NLI. It's all confusing. And now you're not going to have an NLI. I'm glad you called in about it, because I saw that yesterday. To be honest with you, I didn't pay that much attention to it. I guess I've just kind of zoned out on all the legal stuff. But I don't know. Again, I just don't know what the contract is going to look like that they sign. I guess that's where I'm confused. We're not going to have a national letter of intent, but what are we going to have? It's like everything else in college sports right now. We don't really know for sure what we're doing.
It's a state of flux. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you got to sign something. I mean, and if I don't know. I mean, will these guys, I'm assuming that you can't go around signing contracts with more than one school. I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wouldn't think so either.
I got to read up on it, RV. I'm not sure how it's going to work. There's got to be some type of, like you said, financial agreement or contract, or this is what you get when you come to a school. But we're like I said, we're 7 weeks out, and other than the fact that there's not going to be a national letter of intent, I don't know any more about what they're going to do, I think, than they do. I guess they're trying to put it all together in the next 7 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think it'll become more clear, but I just wanted to kind of bring it up because that was definitely in the news yesterday.
Yeah, thank you, RV. Again, that's probably something I need to start reading up on and be a little more aware of. I guess I've been just so zeroed in on Alabama trying to come back off that loss of Vanderbilt. I saw yesterday that it happened, but didn't read a lot about it. Thank you, RV.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Talk to you later.
All right. It's 10:29, and we need to get to the break here on the Gary Harris Show. Hey, lunch is right around the corner. I got a lot of great places that I'm involved with, as you know, that you can get lunch at. One of them is Billy's. Billy's Sports Grill in beautiful, historic downtown Northport. One of my faves. I've had so many people that have told me that they've tried Billy's. Based on my recommendation, nobody's been disappointed. A beautiful restaurant, bar, 2 dining areas, and, of course, that outside patio. With this type of weather, man, people flock to it. Great drink menu. Some really terrific menu items.
Discover better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
back into the Gary Harris Show, and it's time for Jeff Spiegel, longtime sports anchor, host of The Zone on ABC 3340, and got a new show now on Saturday nights. Jeff, again, is it EOG End of Game? Is that the show?
Yeah, it's the full name is the End of Game Wrap.
Okay,
but the EOG Wrap is
EOG Wrap.
What we call it for short.
Yeah. Hot show because you got with ABC having the SEC package, man. You got a great lead into your show every week, so you got a lot happening, and of course, everything this week in this state and really in the country in college football has been dwarfed by Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt. I mean, let's just be honest, and I think everybody's giving Vanderbilt plenty of credit, up to the point where I'm just tired of giving them credit. We get it. They're better. Pavia is the real deal. Jerry Kill and Tim Beck and I get it. But it's still Alabama number one and undefeated, going to Nashville in a stadium where they had 70% of the fans. They hadn't lost to this team in 40 years, 23 straight wins, and they got beat 40-35. And it is a stunner. And we're still dealing with the fallout. Just your takeaways from what you saw, and where does Alabama go from here?
Well, I mean, it's one of those unforgivable losses. I mean, you can talk all day about any given Sunday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. But Alabama just shouldn't lose to Vanderbilt. I mean, they're on two different levels, And the thing that I think about when I think of this game is that I've got a couple of what ifs. What if Alabama hadn't turned the ball over twice? When I look at that, I go, Alabama, welcome to Auburn's world. All the turnovers that they've had this year, and it just shows you how costly, turning the ball over can be. Now, the pick six was kind of a freaky thing.
It was a little bit off the
yeah. And the sack, with the fumble, and that was just a guy who just didn't protect, And so I look at that, and then, you look at the 17-play drive by Vandy, and on the surface you can go, wow, they just rammed it right down their throats. Well, 3 of those first downs were, caused by penalty. So, they shot themselves in the foot. Anytime they had a chance to get momentum in the game, it seems like Alabama would screw something up or Vanderbilt would do something great. The 4th and 1 touchdown pass was, amazing. And as you mentioned, Pavia was great. My biggest takeaway from the whole day was just, and we brought this up on the Zone before, one of the most underappreciated aspects of Nick Saban's career at Alabama was the fact he was so good against unranked teams. So darn good. He only lost 4 times against unranked teams. And I think 3 of those was in the first year, and he won 100 games in a row, Gary, against unranked teams. But what does that tell you? That tells you that's a guy who takes care of business. Gary, remember in his press conferences how he would be in the most foul mood when it came to teams that they were getting ready for, that they were supposed to beat. Not only supposed to beat, but supposed to beat soundly. He would be so ill and just cantankerous, and that's the way he'd be with the team too, because, he wanted to make sure that, he got their attention that you could slip up in these games. Happens every week to people. And so that's one of the things you're going to miss the most about Nick Saban after he's gone, that all of these games now, there are no more guarantees. You can't assume anything, and you couldn't assume anything when Nick was here. But Nick made sure that when you assumed they were going to beat an unranked team, that it was going to happen.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good analysis right there, and I'm with you 100%, for whatever reason. And I know they put the rat traps out in the facility and all that, but Alabama overlooked this team. You could see it in their body language. Pavia said as much as the way that, the attitude that Alabama was giving them. They thought they were going to roll in there and win the game. And I think you saw it a little bit too in the game plan on defense. I mean, to not adjust, to not really seeming to have a plan to attack this offensive system, which is a little unique. It almost felt like Kane Wommack just said, I got better players than you. We're not going to do anything special for you. And not only is it serving as a lesson to Alabama and Kalen DeBoer's first-year staff, but it's being used as a lesson around college football around the country. I mean, like you said, the Any Given Saturday theme is out there now, and every coach in America that's got a good team is saying, look what happened to Alabama. It just seems like they weren't ready to go. And I think that's what's got more Alabama fans disappointed than anything else and again, that's not taking anything away from Vanderbilt, but Alabama was not ready to play this football game.
That's totally true. And, I was talking to a coach last night, and, one of our high school coaches in the area who's just, so darn smart when it comes to, ball. And he said, everybody thought when the transfer portal came along that it'd make the best teams even better and it'd make them even stronger and it'd create even more separation. But what it's done, is created more parity because guys are transferring. They're not all flocking to Alabama. They're transferring to programs where they can play, where they can play ball. And so what it's done really is create more parity. And so you're going to see a lot more of this, in college football in the future where, teams that before the portal didn't have a prayer, but now guys are getting dudes, guys are getting players, and it's leveled the playing field a little bit more.
Ellis Johnson was on earlier. He lived it here as a coach and on two different occasions, and you've lived it as a broadcaster and covering the team. Me too. Is that when you lose a game like this, and it doesn't happen often, boy, everything that was kind of simmering under the surface just comes right out. Fans then aren't shy anymore. People have not been happy with the hoodies at home. They weren't happy with the T-shirt at Vanderbilt. So Coach DeBoer had to hear about the wardrobe all week. That 4-2-5, that defensive scheme that Kane Wommack brought. It's been a lot of people haven't liked it from the get-go, and now it's just out there. 4-2-5 stinks. It's horrible. It's the worst defensive system ever. The music at practice, the ice cream, Roll Tide Willie talking to the team. You and I knew this was going to happen. It's all okay until you lose a game, and losing a game like this, now there seems to be nothing that's good about the program. But they have to turn the page. And we both know, too, that you never get this stain off of you. This is one of those losses. It'll be mentioned throughout Alabama football history, regardless of what happens. But you do have a chance to move on. And if you win this game and you go to Tennessee and win, in 2 weeks the narrative will be completely different than it is now. But it all starts with this game Saturday, and this is a dangerous game. This is a South Carolina team, Jeff, that wore out Kentucky and Lexington, should have beat LSU, had a disappointing performance against Ole Miss. But if you're not ready to go, I don't care if it's home, 11 a.m., what it is, you could be in a dogfight again. How do you see this matchup on Saturday?
Well, it's one of those dreaded 11 o'clock games, right? And look, there's going to be a hangover. There's no doubt about it. Because just like last week, when people couldn't stop talking about the win over Georgia, people can't stop talking about, the fact that Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. So I'm sure the Alabama guys are going, can we just move on to South Carolina already? Can we just do that? But no, I mean, when you have a loss like this, people are going to be talking about it up until Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. And and there's a challenge. And I think the one lasting image that Alabama fans are going to have about this Vanderbilt game are not the Vanderbilt touchdowns. It's not the Jalen Milroe fumble. It's not the Jalen Milroe pick six. It's what Malachi Moore did in the late stages of that game. And just coming unglued like that. And then talking back to the coaches, refusing to be subbed, and all that stuff. And what that did, that opened up a sliver of doubt as to the handle that Kalen DeBoer has on this football team. And until those doubts are erased, and it's going to take several weeks for those doubts to be erased, until those doubts are completely erased, then people are going to feel a lot better about Kalen DeBoer and how he's coaching up this football team. But that's one of those images right there that's going to be hard to get out of Alabama fans' minds, I think.
Yeah, let's I was going to ask you anyway. You've known Malachi Moore since he was at Hewitt-Trussville. We know he's got a great family. We know he's a terrific young man. We know that academically he's been a standout here. He's already graduated. We know what he's done in the community. Nobody doubts his character. Nobody doubts the kind of young man he is and the fact that he helped keep this team together. I think what the problem fans have with it is we understand that. Nobody needs to tell us that. But the losing the cool that he displayed, the meltdown, whatever you want to call it, as you said, kicking the football once it had been spotted, throwing out his mouthpiece. And the worst is, and somebody sent me some fan video from the stands where he didn't just refuse to come off the field. He sent the other Hubbard back, and then you could see him giving Kane Womack the business. And like you said, just flat out. And the fact that goes, we understand maybe he's had to do some stuff, but the fact that there's no suspension forthcoming, and then that the coaches, particularly Coach DeBoer, I handed him the Nobel Peace Prize at the press conference. I think that bothers some people, that not only was there appears to be very little discipline in regards to his actions, but that the coaching staff just went on and on about all the great things that he's done. What do you make of that situation and how it was handled?
Well, I tell you this, and when I think about this, I go back to NIL, man. And I blame it on the name, image, and likeness. One of the things this has created is that it's given players, a little bit more entitlement, and now it's hard to suspend guys. I mean, and now you got a situations where, if you're too rough on a guy and you coach him up too much, I mean, they'll check out, man, and they'll just leave, So, I mean, it's a tightrope that coaches have to walk that, Nick Saban didn't have to walk when he came in here in 2007. And coaches are now having a difficult time with this. And as egregious as what Malachi Moore did, in the late stages of that game, I just don't know how much more Kalen DeBoer could have done. He could have suspended him for a game. Maybe should have suspended him for a game. But I just don't know. I think coach's power has been taken away considerably over this, the NIL stuff and just the fact that players have more power than they used to. They do, and they know it. And you make a great point.
Let's get to how you think this game will play out on Saturday. Do you see Alabama coming out and boom, making a statement and getting on top of South Carolina in a hurry? Or do you think that the Gamecocks are going to hang in here? How do you see it playing out?
Well, listen, as much as we want to talk about that Vandy game and just, how terrible of a loss it was, we can still look at the offense, and the offense is good. I mean, the offense is in good shape, and they're explosive. They haven't lost that explosiveness. So they're not going to have any trouble. They're going to have any trouble scoring points. I mean, from this day forward, what fans want to see is defensively. And look, from what I can tell, South Carolina is not that formidable of an offense, right? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what their stats are. It doesn't matter how many yards they're averaging per game on the ground, through the air. It doesn't matter how good Sellers is, how good Ashford is. I mean, they want to see guys tackle. They want to see guys bring guys to the ground. Mm-hmm. They want to see pressure put on the quarterback. They want to see considerably more 3-and-outs than we've seen from this team in the last 6 quarters. I think 54% third down conversion rate against this defense. 10 plays of 20 yards or more. So, I mean, they want to see a defense, no matter how good South Carolina is. I mean, they want to see a defense that stops some people. So that's the thing that fans are going to be looking for, come Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Auburn's on bye, and Auburn fans have been taking a victory lap with the Alabama loss, which is odd to me when you're 2-4 and 0-3 in the league. I've discussed this morning as well. Auburn does not look like a bad football team. They really don't. But they're 2-4, man, and 0-3 in the league. I mean, let's be honest. Barring a dramatic turnaround, this is a team that very well could be headed for their 4th straight losing season. Have the fans just tuned it out because they seem so giddy over what's happening with Alabama? Is that is that the case, or is it more when you're 2-4 and 0-3 in the league, you find your victories where you can take them, and they haven't had many on the field? What's going on with Auburn?
Well, I haven't heard much of that. I know Auburn fans can be kind of giddy, when bad things happen to Alabama. Let's be honest, they haven't had that many opportunities, to laugh at the arch rival. But look, they look in their backyard and they don't like what they see. One of the positives from the Auburn-Georgia game is that they didn't turn the ball over. They made some, critical mistakes in bad situations. The one thing that continues to mystify me about this Auburn team is the relationship between Hugh Freeze and Peyton Thorne. It's just plain dang goofy. It's goofy. The 4th and 1, there's some, Hugh Freeze said one thing. He called another play, and that's not the play we called. And then Peyton Thorne comes out on the next round and he goes, yeah, I didn't check into another play. Well, what the heck is going on here? And when I see Hugh Freeze talking to Peyton Thorne on the bench and I see Peyton Thorne talking back, what I see Peyton Thorne telling Hugh Freeze is, hey, man, I'm the only one you got. I'm the only guy you can ride with that you can depend on. So as much as you're yelling at me, just keep in mind, look at the other guys on your quarterback depth chart. I'm the best guy you have.
Mm-hmm.
So get off my back. It's kind of like, it's just a weird dynamic, the weirdest dynamic I've ever seen between a coach and a quarterback. Right?
Yeah, it's weird. It is.
It's really strange.
It is.
But having said that, they could go to Missouri, they could go to Kentucky, and they're playing well enough to where Missouri is just like reeling right now. Missouri doesn't know what in the heck's going on with their football team,
mm-hmm.
right? So Auburn could go in there and they could beat those guys. They could go to Kentucky and they could win that game. I think those 2 road games are more winnable than I thought they were maybe a couple of weeks ago. And then, it's just, we'll see what happens from that point on. But those 2 road games are huge for Auburn. And if they could get a win in one of those games, I think it would do a lot for their morale.
All right, a couple other topics I want to hit on. First, let's get to UAB and talk about a beleaguered coach. Trent Dilfer, man, has stuck his foot in his mouth, and the Mark Ingram, the AD, is beleaguered right now. Product on the field is awful. Are either one of these guys? I know Kevin Skrabinsky has just come out publicly and said, they both need to go. What's going to happen with UAB?
Nothing until the end of the year. This isn't one of these situations where, they let a guy go like in the middle of the year. First of all, I think Mark Ingram knows that, the writing's on the wall for him, as Kevin pointed out. But, they're going to limp along here through the year. And then, there's going to be decisions made. And yeah, I think Ingram and Dilfer are both gone. It was an experiment that failed. It failed. It was an outside-the-box hire. And you know what? Gary, you and I are approximately the same age, and I'm all about thinking outside the box. But sometimes when you're hiring a head football coach, you got to think inside the box. You got to make a hire that makes sense. You got to go get, an offensive coordinator who's up and coming and all that. You don't hire a high school coach. You just don't. And a guy who's never coached it down in college, you just don't do that. That's not outside the box thinking. That's just silly thinking. So, UAB's, paying the price for this. Look, Bill Clark handed a pretty good program to Trent Dilfer. And Trent Dilfer has made this UAB job not a great job to have. It's not going to be a very appealing job. So not only did you kind of bring the program down, but when you leave, you're making it hard for people to find a replacement for you because I don't know how many coaches out there are going to want to take that job.
And it makes it even worse is the fact that Brian Vincent has done so well at ULM. They knocked off James Madison last week, which was an epic upset in FCS. Man, you're right. Then that guy could have been your coach. All right, real quickly, Jacksonville State's won 3 in a row. I think we saw last night. We saw the positive of the portal with Vanderbilt poaching New Mexico State's roster and taking their head coach, taking their offensive coordinator. The flip side is we saw New Mexico State what they've quickly become. They got pillaged by the portal. They won 10 games a year ago, and they're awful. So I thought that was on display last night. Jacksonville State's playing well, but New Mexico State went from a really good team in 1 year to a trash team, all because they were poached in the portal and even their coaches were taken.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Tyler Huff's a great story for them. I mean, he's with his third program, he's like started at every level. He's really good. Trey Stewart, a guy they got from transfer from Division II. He's so good. And so, yeah, they put up a lot of points. I think it's been 116 points in the last 2 games. And, Rich Rod loves to play that up-tempo style. And, it's very entertaining. And they're starting to find their groove right now.
Jeff, great stuff as always, man. And our listeners, of course, interested in all the stuff you got going on with your shows, and kind of let everybody know what you got on tap this weekend.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Well, the EOG Wrap is on Saturday night after Ole Miss LSU, and then the Zone.
Or Town Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 72 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Your home for Alabama Crimson Tide football. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the Thursday edition of the Gary Harris Show. I want to thank the Alabama Credit Union for their sponsorship. Obviously, Pinnacle Park at North River, a beautiful gated townhome community near gorgeous Lake Tuscaloosa, for the hotline. All of our other sponsors as well. I want to thank Chase for his good work. And a reminder to catch me on TV tonight on WVUA 23 for your local sports. And I understand we're still not on a lot of the major carriers. We're working hard. We have bidded out the process. We're trying to find tower climbers to fix our transmitter. Hopefully we'll be up and running. Tomorrow morning, Fridays at the Free, I'm live from Innisfree Irish Pub at 9 a.m. on University Boulevard in Tuscaloosa for the TGIF edition. We're going to have a lot of fun and that Bama football trivia giveaway. That's tomorrow morning. Talk to you then. Have a great day, everybody.